Hello and welcome to Wrestling and. Today we are going to talk about wrestling and masks. Something we haven't talked about, but here we are. That's what our show is. And you've seen them. We all have masks in wrestling. They're kind of weird because only in wrestling do you have guys that are like legit anonymous throughout their whole career, but it is a thing, and we know they're crucial to what lucha is, but massive and part of wrestling culture everywhere, now, especially nowadays. Every country has a masked wrestler that is now a legend, and we still don't know the names of some of them. So let's get into it, and before we do, we just had some kind of news just happen a little bit ago, and it'll probably all be solved by the time you guys hear this, but we're going to talk about it real quick. Justin, in-ring art, Justin, what is going on with MJF?
I don't know if necessarily it'll be solved, but we'll know what actually happened. But apparently, he no-showed the AEW Fan Fest tonight, and it's been kind of confirmed by some sources that he actually booked a flight out of Vegas and is allegedly going to no-show tomorrow for his match against Wardlow at Double or Nothing.
Oh, God. Well, that would be absolutely terrible, and possibly affect his career forever if he ended up doing that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a very good idea for him to do something like that. I mean,
a fan fest is one
thing. Yeah, the fan fest is one thing. You can do that and still, be somewhat kayfabe about it. But yeah, if he's actually leaving the show altogether, who knows what's going on, if it's even real. But we'll see.
I've heard a lot of people say it's real. It is real. A lot of people that would know better. Samoa Joe also no-show. Did you hear that?
I did not hear that part, no.
However, Samoa Joe had communication issues, not the same as MJF. Did you also see that MJF has booked a flight out of Las Vegas today?
Yeah, I think I just said that, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. I was looking at my text.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's the thing with Samoa Joe?
He just had communication issues, so he might not have known what time he was supposed to be there.
Oh, okay.
Someone might have
texted. Fan Fest?
Yeah, to the autograph.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So,
that wouldn't be like him.
No, very known as very professional. It's going to be weird, too. My sister's going to Double or Nothing, as you know, tomorrow, and she is an MJF freak. So she is really going to have her heart broken if he doesn't show up. And, man, I would feel so bad for Wardlow, wouldn't you?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's supposed to be... I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that match. But, yeah, obviously it's a big spot for him.
Biggest match of his career?
I mean, allegedly the whole thing with MJF is his contract's up in, 2024? And
yeah.
I mean, that's a little too soon to be
years.
whining about stuff like this. Yeah.
Well, he could want more money now. It's possible.
Would WWE deal with a guy who ditched the middle of his contract like that?
Well,
who's to say he wouldn't do that to them?
No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why this would be a really, really bad look. And I think he's smarter than that. So, I mean, not a whole lot to say about it. Again, by Monday, by the time this comes out, we will know if he was at the show. I think chances are he will be at the show. And we'll get on to that later.
I mean, this could be some Andy Kaufman level shit that he's working on right now. Who knows?
I think we always want it to be, but I guess we really don't know. But we could have said the same thing about Sasha and Naomi, right? It's just Andy Kaufman level. They're on a next level than us, but
no, that thought never occurred to me for them too. But maybe for MJF, but not them.
I don't know if it occurs to me for MJF either, considering that fans pay money to go see you, and I know he's got that character, but
he's got that character where he doesn't give an S about it.
You should see
and,
his,
people like your sister. He wants to. Go ahead. What?
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say. First of all, you want to turn off your video? Would you mind doing that for now?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get a little latency right now.
Oh, okay. It's pretty good on my end.
Yeah, I think you warped out in and out. I didn't hear. Anyways, yeah. Have you seen his cameos?
Yeah.
He charges $500.
Does he really?
Yeah, the max.
Well, people are stupid enough to pay him. Then Like, yeah, that's what they want. It's like, he's like a dominatrix or somebody like that who you pay them to abuse you, right?
True.
So I mean, that's pretty much his. Why would he be nice to somebody? Like, these people are paying him that kind of money to do stupid
roast
stuff.
you.
Yeah, that's what they want.
Or to lazily make the cameo and put no effort into it and stuff. But like you said, they want to be abused, and if you charge enough, people will buy stuff. If you have the money, some lady said, "MJF, thank you, my kids loved it," as he calls their kids a piece of shit. And
well, do you see he took someone's drawing and ripped it or whatever he did with it, scribbled all over it, stuff like that. I mean, this is his. That's basically, that's his shtick, right? This kind of takes it to a whole other level. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, sometimes parody in real life, there's a fine line there. You know what I mean? So.
Well, they say that they've always say the best character is you times 10, right? So there you go.
I think they say yourself bumped up to 11.
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll see about that. Today we're going to talk about wrestling and masks. Justin, talk about the aura that kind of masks have nowadays for wrestlers.
Nowadays, huh?
Nowadays, yeah. Or can have.
Well, yeah. I mean, masks, are always going to offer that kind of level of mysteriousness. Who is that masked person, right? Mm-hmm. Who is that masked man? Who is that masked woman, right? So it's just a way to not hide your identity or simply just create a new identity for yourself in the ring. To this day, we still see guys that are quote-unquote masked wrestlers. When they show up for outside ring events, the mask is on. The mask is on when they, are doing commentary, appear on shows or on guest somewhere. If they're wearing a suit, the mask is still there.
If they're doing a game show that's not involved in wrestling at all, they're wearing a suit and a mask.
They're still wearing the mask, and if there is a photo of them where they're in the background, it's probably blurred out if their mask isn't on, and
yeah,
it's pretty much a part of it's their face.
Do the masks kind of remind you of like a superhero gimmick, kind of?
Yeah, I think so.
Where you put the mask on, right? Like Superman when he, ripped his suit off and he was in that. It's like you become, you get power from it, right? You become a different character.
Or it's just a way to hide your identity to who you are. So there is the superhero who walks among us when they're not in quote-unquote gimmick, right? And then they put the mask on or whatever. Well, actually, not that many superheroes wear masks. Not every superhero wears a mask.
A lot of superheroes wear masks, though. Or just little domino masks, that hides their identity, quote-unquote. It's like Robin.
Superman would do the opposite. He'd wear the glasses when he wasn't Superman.
And no one could tell who he was.
Yeah, kind of funny, right?
Yeah, I think Conan made fun of that on Saturday Night Live years ago, but go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, yes, that's their identity, and it's, a sin to take it off, whether it's taken off by someone else or they take it off themselves. Although a lot of the, these days we've seen a lot of the wrestlers without their mask on, sometimes in the ring, and sometimes out of the ring.
We'll get into those stories in a little bit here, but
doesn't quite have the mystique it used to have. But it still is pretty one of those traditions that is still it still works today,
and it's respected. And yeah, it does work, and I like that and say it works because it there is a purpose to it in a way. Like you said, hiding identity, making them into like a superhero kind of character, larger than life. I know you've mentioned Penta and you've mentioned El Desperado as having very intimidating looks with the mask and the contacts. And there's other guys that do that similar look too. So I definitely think it works nowadays still. So let's go.
Yeah, nowadays they do stuff they incorporate face paint and contact lenses to kind of complete the look and complement the look as well.
Oh yeah. Yep. So let's go. Let's talk about the history, okay?
Sure.
So masks, they clearly started in Mexico, and that's kind of where we know them as coming from. And we're talking wrestling masks, people. No one email me and say, well, actually, the first sign of masks in human, we're talking wrestling. The first use of masks were in the early 1900s in Mexico. And Mexico, why it happened there... one of the reasons could be that masks actually had a lot of historical significance in Mexico, dating back to the Aztecs, like giving people powers and such.
Interesting.
So
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely plausible though. Early masks were really simple. You'd have like one color. Obviously, manufacturing techniques have changed, but nowadays, I mean, look. Masks are as crazy as they want them to be, right?
Oh yeah, we've seen some very intricate masks these days, and some that we even have mask on top of mask with some wrestlers, right?
Bushi, well known for basically wearing a new mask every event. The guy has probably hundreds of masks at this point. I imagine Rey Mysterio is the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are guys that both of them, I think, come out with entrance mask as well, right?
Definitely Bushi does, for sure. And I've seen Rey Mysterio do it. So, they got masks on top of masks. I think I've seen him do 4 masks one time when COVID was going on. But, so very complex. They can represent gods or animals or archetypes or usually some kind of look that goes into the character. You've got like Satanico, the Satan wrestler, right? It's got kind of a satanic mask. So in Mexico, moving on, Mexico, so most wrestlers start with a mask. Did you know that? Kind of could assume it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
But also, like, most of them are going to be unmasked eventually.
Right.
So, and we'll talk about unmasking in a minute here. So, I'd say that having a mask as your identity is like super important. That identity is really important to most masked wrestlers. And, to the point where what you said, you don't rip off the mask, or if you're a heel, you do, right? And, but we've seen it a lot, right? Like the whole, like, ripping off the mask. It's kind of become a trope at this time, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It still has like a connotation of, an unwritten rule. You're not supposed to rip off the mask of a wrestler, and that's, a big sin in the world of kayfabe wrestling. And, also to this point too, we've seen a lot of wrestlers unmasked in the ring now. It's not like an unusual thing anymore, right?
In Japan and maybe America. In Mexico, it's different.
A little more sacred.
But you say unwritten rule, but actually it is a written rule in Japan and Mexico and certain promotions.
That's true. Yeah, you get disqualified if you rip off a mask. So, yes.
Which is almost like if you're thinking kayfabe, like being disqualified isn't even that bad of a thing for destroying someone's identity. But
right, true.
When the mask is ripped off, ringside staff is usually going to try and cover the face and help out the wrestler, and so none of the cameras pick it up and none of the fans see it, because that is very, very important for that identity. And nowadays with the internet, it's even more important, because you have one little sneak peek of your face and you might as well just give it up, right?
I mean, all you have to do for pretty much every unmasked wrestler that you just type their name in unmasked, and usually you're able to find something. Doesn't
it impress you that there are all these wrestlers that to this day remain anonymous?
Name a few.
Dragon Kid, Penta, Phoenix.
I'm sure you could find him unmasked if you Googled.
You might be able to find him unmasked, but we don't know what their names are still, I'm
pretty sure the names are on Wikipedia.
You would think so, but good luck looking it up like I did. I mean,
Nothing, huh?
these are anonymous guys. I mean, let's see, Pentagon Jr. Real name. So when I look that up, I have, nothing. No real name.
One of his parents is Fuego.
Yeah, and his brother is Ray Phoenix. But no, I don't have any real names here, and it says, he's anonymous.
Good for them then for keeping that.
His name is not a matter of public record, as in often the cases with Mexican wrestlers, their private lives are kept a secret. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, especially it's tough to do, but I mean, geez. So
I think Japan does a better job of that too, in terms of keeping the wrestlers' lives private. So it's a way. Yeah, so I guess in a way it is a way to keep things private. Yeah, there's a few with him without his mask, but of course he has some face paint on.
Because they did rip his mask off at one show. I forgot which one it is, where they just yanked it right off, and I saw his face for sure. I forgot who did that, but it was kind of funny.
It was
actually
at Impact.
It was at Impact, like just ripped it right off. I think it was on a ladder or something.
Yeah, a lot of times they get not just it torn off. Like the mask will rip, like there is some, but their face is still a little bit unrecognizable because there's either blood covering it or they still have the face paint, so it's a little bit of a blur, if you will. It's not their full-on look.
You know what was a really good one? You look at Atlántico, very famous masked wrestler versus Los Villanos, I think, 3 or maybe Los Villanos 3. They had a pretty intense match in the early 2000s, and Los Villanos' mask ripped all over. You get what I'm saying? Like, you could see his eye to his nose to part of his mouth. There are big gaping holes all over the mask, but because of all the blood and stuff, you still couldn't tell who the guy was. Well, until the match ended. But so yeah, let's talk about unmasking then. So in Mexico, wrestlers can lose their mask, and it is a big, really big deal, especially, obviously depending on how big the wrestler is, but most of the time they can bet their mask, right? So you've heard of that.
Sure, yes.
Mask versus mask. Sometimes they'll do, what else do they do?
Well, sometimes, they will, if they lose a mask, they will basically lose the mask to kind of move on to a new level of their career too. So a lot of times they will become unmasked, but then they go on to being just an unmasked wrestler, like your Eddie Guerreros, your Rey Mysterios have done that. Yeah, Andrade, Juventud Guerrera, and those kind of things. Because I think a lot of times, especially in the 90s and stuff, especially with North American product, they felt like wrestlers aren't able to show the facial expressions of selling and being fired up and show emotions because of a mask.
Until that's
for
a
television
liger.
Yeah, but that's the connotation here. That's more of like the Eric Bischoff opinion.
I've heard a lot of people say that Rey Mysterio's unmasking was one of the worst business decisions ever.
Well, I mean, I think with guys like Juventud Guerrera and probably, Almas and, those guys were just probably guys that were pretty good looking. And it's a lot like maybe to some, having a guy like Roman Reigns wrestle with a flak jacket on. It's like, that dude is incredibly built. Why is he sitting there wearing a flak jacket when he's wrestling?
No, I agree with
degree.
I agree with the philosophy, but specifically when you talk about Rey Mysterio, I mean, does anyone think of Rey Mysterio without a mask when they think of him? It's almost like we've purposely forgot what he looks like. We only know him as the masked wrestler.
Yeah, I mean, he'll go down as being the masked wrestler for sure.
Yeah.
There was a time where he is, and from time to time, still doesn't wear a mask, but we still will. Oh, yeah. It didn't really, taint him being a masked wrestler. he kind of got lucky in that way.
He did, and actually in Mexico, and the question I was leading you towards was like, you also can have masked versus hair matches, right?
Right.
They might even have masked versus title matches and stuff like that. But sometimes, and I wrote pretty much what you said, when they lose the mask, it usually results in a change of career, either a gimmick change, right? They might switch to a different mask. Or, sometimes it can be real bad where it's like they stop getting that push because no one likes them without their mask. So
I guess it could be a way to write them off or whatever, because I don't know how many wrestlers were unmasked and then walked away.
Well, quite a bit actually,
Yeah.
and I'll get to that too here. So in Mexico, when you are unmasked, it's like a huge deal. So like your whole family's going to be there,
Right.
So when I watched La Sombra Andrade get unmasked, he had his family there. I think he had his mom unmask him, actually. And he was
Really?
crying. Everyone was crying.
Was that in Mexico?
Yeah, that was in Mexico against
Right.
Atlántico. And one of the weird things about it is when they do unmask you in Mexico, not only do they unmask you, they immediately announce your full name, where you're from, and how long you've been wrestling.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how it is. And a lot of dudes do take that mask off and end up being even bigger superstars,
Sure.
So I had some names here that I don't have anymore, but there's a lot of guys that have made big names of themselves afterwards. I think, what is the Guerrero, the big, huge Guerrero? I forgot that guy's name. He's not part of the family. Ultimo Guerrero. Yeah, like that dude. He's a big guy, no mask, and he seems to be doing okay for himself in CMLL. So that's kind of how it works. Also, a lot of times upon retirement, they'll lose their mask before their final match or final tour. So as a way of kind of saying goodbye to the character.
And probably not having to, have to still carry around that mask everywhere after they retire as well. And just being able to just be normal. We know that there's some guys that still won't do it, like Liger.
Great Sasuke.
Still won't. Great Sasuke. They still won't ditch the mask.
Yeah. Even though we know who they are, but...
Yeah, and even to agree, somebody like Excalibur is never going to lose the mask either.
I guess that's true. I didn't bring him up, but that is a good example. It's just weird because...
Well, obviously, he's not on the level of guys like, Liger and everything. But
No,
just,
but he's there. He's one of the most... he's one of the people you and I hear talk most every week or every few weeks a lot of times.
Very true. He's a prominent figure in modern pro wrestling for sure.
But it's weird because it is weird. It's weird. That, like wrestling, dude. Like, we see Excalibur, right? You and I don't even bat an eye, right? It's not a big deal. In fact, when we first saw him, it was probably like, oh, that's interesting, and that's it. You don't really spend too much time thinking about it. But if a non-wrestling fan saw that, they'd think it was a fucking joke.
Yeah, they would, and they hear him announce, and there's probably a lot of people that have watched AEW occasionally on a few occasions, and they hear his voice, and they have no idea the guy's wearing a mask.
Yeah, it's funny with him because he's actually a pretty handsome guy too, and I don't know, it's a funny one, but that is his character, right? It's
I
who
like
he is.
it though.
I like
mean,
it.
I don't see a problem with it myself. I think it's cool and it's unique.
I like it. So sometimes unmasking can be part of a story, right? Like I don't just mean that the story is gonna make them unmask after the match. I mean actively part. Why don't you talk about Keishan Liger and that unmasking from a few years ago?
Right. See, well, or a few years ago, or it was done in the past. Yeah, it's more like the mask is off, but there's still something that covers that identity. Whether it's face paint or, well, basically, I think back in the day he had that Keishan Liger alter ego, right?
Yeah.
And the first one, if I recall, he actually did still have the long hair. And it was more of like a Kiss Demon-ish type of look, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If I had to describe it. like a Kiss Demon mixed with maybe like a Genghis Khanish type of look, maybe would be a way to describe it.
I think Kiss Demon is the perfect description.
Right, and later that kind of evolved into, what we've seen recently with Minoru Suzuki, which to this day I thought that should have been his last match. Should have been him and Suzuki at Wrestle Kingdom, but, it didn't work out that way. They kind of just gave him a casual goodbye tour, right? A feel-good kind of situation.
Well, yes and no. He did lose his last 2 matches, but his last New Year's Dash was a feel-good.
Yeah, it was all feel-good stuff. I really would have loved to see it end with him and Suzuki, but that's just not the kind of guy he was and all that kind of thing. Well, anyway,
Suzuki killed him too, actually, but then bowed to him.
Right. He lost every match on the way out. Probably lost every match for the last 5 years, to be honest, because that's the kind of guy he was. Well, anyway, his latest rendition of the Kyushin Liger character was basically kind of what I'd, no hair anymore, and basically, the Heath Ledger Joker-ish version of Liger would be a way to describe it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I think that makes a good visual image for the podcasters. It's, Jushin Thunder Liger, a little bald guy, still swole, muscled, but no shirt with all this white face paint and the red lips, as Justin says, with the Joker and some black marks. So it was a semi-unmasking. We already know Keiji Yamada. I mean, we know his name and stuff, but it brought the unmasking kind of into the storyline. Another one that I remember, why don't you talk about El Desperado and
Hiromu.
Yeah,
that was what you would call a temporary unmasking. This was in probably one of the best junior matches of the last 5-6 years. Was it the 2020 Best of the Super Juniors final?
I don't remember exactly. It might have been last year.
I think it was 2020.
Okay.
It was late in 2020 when they had that. And, the final was Hiromu and El Desperado. And El Desperado, the circumstance, he kind of got just accidentally unmasked, right? It ripped. Yeah. And then he pulled it off, right?
Yeah, he pulled off his own mask. He said, fuck it.
Yeah, I think, that's another way to do it, too, is sometimes during the course of a match, the mask would get accidentally ripped, and the unmasked wrestler is kind of, it becomes a liability because they can't see out of it anymore. It's not working, so they have to rip it off, right? And although El Desperado still had the face paint that he has, and I believe he was still wearing a colored contacts, I think he went the whole, last third or fourth of the quarter of the match unmasked.
Just ripped his own mask off, man.
And it was such a meaningful, incredible moment that really made that match that much more special. And then, of course, it was only a temporary thing because the next matches he came out with, he had the mask on again. So, it worked out well.
Yeah, it did, and that was a huge moment. He didn't need the mask, so he ripped it right off. He said, this match is bigger than my mask. And as we've talked about the mask being this huge thing and a big part of their identity, that was pretty awesome. By the way, I'm watching Pentagon Jr. versus Ray Phoenix from, 2020? And I didn't realize that Pentagon ripped his brother's mask right off almost. You can see his bald head and his face and stuff. So,
yeah.
Do you remember that?
So, I mean, there's always temporary glimpses that you can find. And I think especially with Desperado, he's, still to me, it's almost like that unmasking did happen, of course, but there was still a record of kind of what he looked like before.
Well, he was a young boy. So, any New Japan wrestler that goes through the New Japan, there's no anonymity for the New Japan wrestlers.
So the bottom line is, we're not going to see what El Desperado looks like when he goes to the supermarket or whatever. If he ever see him unmasked, it's going to be with some contacts, some face paint. We're not going to get that full-on everyday look that he has. Unless
he decides, hey, we're going to unmask forever. Or they decide that, right? But... I doubt that'll happen anytime soon. But the thing is, though, so in New Japan, you can't make a dude really anonymous because you have to have the young lions, right? Unless they decide to mask a young lion, which they'll probably never do. But in Dragon Gate, they actually still carry that anonymity. Did you know that? Like, their masked wrestlers are masked and unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that makes sense. But in New Japan, though, sometimes they can try and send a guy on an excursion and come back, and he has a mask on, and they just don't really say who it is, right?
Yeah, or kind of...
It's always concluded, though.
Kind of vice versa. They wear a mask on excursion and come back and unmask.
Yeah,
such as Kama Itachi.
Right.
So, you know, and actually it's funny because we've got Best of the Super Juniors going on and right now, and that's always a big mask tournament, right? Like, for the most part, when it's not COVID restrictions, like, you have like 6 masked wrestlers every tournament. So kind of a random thing to mention, and we'll talk about that later, but...
And masks are very prevalent in junior heavyweight, cruiserweight characters, or it's a little more weight in that direction for that weight class.
Definitely, at least in America and Japan.
Yeah.
So yeah, and especially in Japan. So totally agree with that, and that is totally true. So that's kind of, masks as a concept, why they exist, and how important they are. Answer vary. So yeah, let's talk about some masked wrestlers, okay? And maybe we'll focus on what the mask means to them and what it did for them, and we don't have to go over their whole career or anything, but I'll bring over a few names here. Talk about Bushi.
Well, Bushi is a wrestler in New Japan, of course, in Los Ingobernables de Japón, and I believe he did his excursion stuff in Mexico, and came back with a mask gimmick. Not particularly the most exciting wrestler, or the most beloved wrestler by any means, but definitely it's a huge part of what he is, and he's a guy that comes out with a full-on suit and not just one mask, but usually has a very a mask that maybe lights up or some kind of gimmick to it that he takes off before he gets in a match.
Yeah.
And he usually wears, like, I would say, black lipstick or something like that to kind of complement
black lipstick,
the mask
black
look.
fingernails.
Yeah, exactly. So he definitely kind of has that lucha side to him.
Yeah. To be fair here, Bushi did not go on excursion to Mexico, as he was not a New Japan Young Lion.
He wasn't? Okay.
He's an All Japan guy.
Okay.
Tetsuya Shimizu. So, yeah, I think Bushi is one of the more flamboyant maskers, as when we talk about actual physical masks. Again, we mentioned him and Rey Mysterio, just constant crazy masks over masks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I wanted to bring him up just because when you talk about masks, I mean, you definitely got to think of him. Not the best wrestler, right? But
right.
Definitely a known masked guy.
And plus their whole little thing with masks too is their merchandise that you can sell.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's something we know now. I mean, probably didn't start to think that way, but yeah, that's a seller. You want to talk about the Fiend, right? Didn't they sell a Fiend mask? They must have.
Probably, yeah.
So, very interesting. Now, when we talk about the Fiend, there we're just talking about just some wacky character, kind of. Like, it's not a lucha thing. It's a mask, but in WWE, you have a lot of that. It's not like a mask to look cool, like okay, maybe it is to look cool, but it's not like a lucha style mask at all. It's just WWE, you're just gonna have the crazy looking masks.
Yeah, a lot of those are the face coverings. Of course, the Fiend's one of the ones that comes to mind at a later stage, and a totally mask that looks like a very difficult mask to do any type of physical activity in. And also you had guys like Mankind, which was basically done to totally make his character completely different than it was before, and maybe one of the most kind of infamous masked wrestlers in WWE history, you'd have to think Kane.
Well, hang on. Take a step back here. So you're saying that they didn't want people to know it was Cactus Jack?
Pretty much. I think they wanted to give him a whole new character.
Because he was already well known on the indie and WCW scene, right?
Yeah, but when he went to WWE, that's a whole different audience of kids and stuff like that.
True.
They didn't even know who Cactus Jack was.
And Cactus Jack might not translate into the Attitude Era too well because they wanted larger than life characters. And Cactus Jack seemed like a crazy ass dude, but kind of a normal crazy ass dude. And he was. Well,
they ended
up
using him. They ended up using him later.
They did eventually.
Yeah, and they had Dude Love, and that's a whole other story. But
we'll do wrestling and alter egos
as a masked wrestler to be completely different from Cactus Jack.
Yeah.
And of course, Kane came in, and I mean, speak about being in this era of where the internet wasn't what it was today. But would have Kane really worked if everyone knew that he was Isaac Yankem DDS now?
Probably not.
Interesting to think about. I mean, I think it was probably mentioned in the dirt sheets that it had to be him and stuff, but that is just incredible. Like if you had Braun Strowman come back in a mask and be in the Randy Orton's brother or whatever, no one would believe that.
That'd be pretty
wild. No
wild,
one would buy into that,
no,
right? I mean, I'm just saying, if they brought back Braun Strowman as somebody's brother,
he'd be booed out of the building.
Exactly. So it's a different era we live in now, but I'm not saying that's a fairest comparison because Braun Strowman was like a former champion and all that stuff, but just take kind of like, I don't know, like Ryback or something like that came back and he was, you know what I mean?
He's Ezekiel's brother.
Which is kind of funny how that works, right? But Kane came back and no one had any idea who he was mostly.
Especially if you're a kid back then. You had no clue.
Right. We had no idea what he looked like without a mask on.
That's all we know. He had the body similar to the Undertaker.
Right. It worked out very well, and the only thing we'd ever see of him was maybe his chin with some facial hair. That was the only thing that we ever saw of Kane.
Yeah. And this was our, childhood experience of having masked wrestlers independent of WCW, but in WWF, that was their kind of masked wrestler, and it was cool, you don't know who he is. It was awesome. I definitely liked the mask. In fact, I bought a not Kane, but I bought a Sting mask, when I was younger, which is a little different because he was actually had face paint, but it made you look like Sting.
A face paint's a whole different dimension, but it doesn't add the same level of what's the word I'm looking for?
Anonymity.
Yeah, anonymity as a mask, a full-out mask is, because you can still make out facial features and everything. Mm-hmm. But, a mask is another version of that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some wrestlers that you see without their face paint and they look completely different. You know how there's some people that when they have a beard versus when they don't have the beard, they look completely different.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, there's some people that kind of look the same with and without a beard, too. So I guess the same thing can go with the face paint. But with the mask, you completely hide who they are.
You completely hide them, yeah. Although it's funny because, a lot of these dudes, I think you mentioned this, but like they can go to the grocery mart and they're not recognized, right? They can just be themselves, which is kind of a nice addition to the mask, right? Like you can live a normal life outside of wrestling for the most part.
You can live as long as you're a little off the beaten path of wrestling where no one will recognize you. You could probably live a relatively normal life going to a supermarket and all that, but not like so many of them are super recognized anyway these days. Most wrestlers, unless you're like John Cena or people like that. But
even if you're somebody like, say, Isaiah Cassidy, right, from Private Party, you're still gonna get recognized here and there. Probably every day if you go to busy places.
I would say probably recognized if he's in the city that they're performing in that night and there's other fans around, but Nah, I would say just somebody like that probably rarely gets recognized unless he's on the road in a town where he's wrestling, and there's definitely more wrestling fans around.
I don't know about that, man. I hear about podcasters that get recognized by their voice, and we're not talking even really that famous podcasters. These guys get recognized by their voice, every few weeks. And so someone that's on TV weekly, I think they're getting recognized a little more than just at the city.
I don't know. Maybe.
So, okay, moving on real quick. El Penta and Ray Phoenix brothers, right?
Yeah.
Great look. Both of them have good looks. Besides, independent of their wrestling, maybe the two top masked wrestlers right now.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, Ray Phoenix has been on the mend, I think, for a little while now. Ray Phoenix Pentagon's masked look is a lot more unique than Ray Phoenix.
Yeah, for sure.
Ray Phoenix is a little more kind of the run-of-the-mill kind of luchador mask look.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them now wear the mouth exposed ones, but I think the prominent masked wrestlers that right away you know who they are would probably have to be Pentagon and El Desperado.
Well, El Desperado, that is Japanese wrestling, so that's, way less people are going to know about that. But
I mean, when you just see them, they're unmistakably.
Yeah.
Ray Phoenix could be a bunch of other wrestlers if you just see him.
And similar with Titan, very generic
Yes.
look. We don't watch him enough, but if you put him in a lucha lineup, and it's not Best of the Super Juniors, you and I might get him mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah, and I think Ray Phoenix, obviously, he's one of the best in-ring just performers and athletes in the entire world, but if he's just standing in this room with you right now, next to Rey Mysterio and a couple other masked wrestlers, there's not like a huge difference.
Yeah, whereas Penta's got a really crazy kind of mask that hangs down. Plus,
yeah, it's almost like a ninja style headband included in it. He uses the contact lenses and the face paint of the teeth.
Yeah, and even his costume is pretty wild. Instead of just a tights or pants, he's got like the whole kind of thing that hangs down between his legs, And
yeah, it's almost like maybe 25% Mortal Kombat Scorpion kind of look.
It's just like a Japanese or Chinese style kind of look to it.
Right. It's like gi-ish almost too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works really, really well. And, El Desperado, has a similar look in terms of the mask with the face paint and the contacts combination. And he also uses a lot of different colors for his mask with black, gold, and white, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wears kind of these frilly, like El Mariachi kind of pants, right?
Yeah, for sure.
He used to come out with a little fuller gimmick with the jacket and stuff like that, but he doesn't do that anymore.
He's simplified it.
But he's got one of the most intimidating looks along with Pentagon. That's mask based. While guys like Ray Phoenix and Bushi are more of like a flashy, just kind of normal, luchador, more traditional luchador look.
So, without telling me that you weren't watching wrestling at the time, what do you know about Hurricane Helms?
Oh, well, I think towards the end of my, before I started my little lapse, he was a comedy figure. I know that he was Sugar Shane Helms and all that. And I think you've seen a few gimmicks, the mask gimmicks, where they're a pure comedy thing, and it's somebody that everyone knows who it is trying to hide behind a mask, and still everyone knows who it is.
So he didn't have a mask at first?
Well, I mean, he was Shane Helms,
okay,
right? And he was in WCW and all that stuff, and Sugar Shane Helms, whatever his name was. So he was wrestling, and then this was a comic relief character, basically.
Yeah.
And it was more of a Zorro style mask, not necessarily something that will completely hide your identity.
Yeah, he had the domino type of mask, a little bigger, but
right. Yeah, but it kind of like was a mix between a Zorro and like maybe one of those masks you'd wear if you break your nose in basketball.
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
Cody Rhodes / Undertaker style mask.
Right. Undertaker had that Fan of the Opera mask for a minute. So it was one of those kind of things, and it was basically as a comedy thing. And it was, I don't know if it was necessarily designed to mock luchadors or whatever, but he had a very like distinct similarity to the Green Arrow, I think.
I think it was more of a
Shane Helms
comic book joke than luchador
right.
joke.
And I think Shane Helms, is a big comic book fan, so that might have been part of the reason behind it.
He does seem like a bit of a nerd, so I could give him that. So yeah, and he did that kind of like you said, the comedy thing. We all know who he is, but he's so dumb that he doesn't realize we all know who he is, right?
Pretty much. And they, he got, had some good run with that. You had The Rock involved at one point with it, I believe, and they gave him a pretty sweet theme song too.
What do you know about Nikki ASH? Masked wrestler. So they kind of tried to do that with her, right? They tried to make her kind of a
it
comedy.
Seems like it.
But what a failure that was.
Talk about someone, Nikki Cross. Nikki Ash was it almost superhero? I mean, what are we doing with that? It was just one of those things where they gave her something that was the complete opposite. She was like kind of a raving lunatic before that, right?
Yeah, but then she started like becoming more normal as she got to the main roster.
Yeah, and they started having her do stuff with Alexa Bliss and all that. I mean,
she's become a comedy figure.
Pretty much. I know they've had her turn heel and everything, I think.
He thinks, but he really doesn't care, and neither do I.
I mean, that's a whole other level. We could talk about female masked wrestlers, right?
Yeah, Sexy Star, her...
Who is pretty much banned from wrestling now for shooting on people, right?
Oh, boy. Yeah, and we aren't, like, Lucha Blog, whatever, Cubs fans, so we can't list off, like, hundreds of women lucha wrestlers, but
and I think for the most part, us being North American and whatnot, we're not exposed to a lot of masked women wrestlers simply because the North American style is to not cover faces of attractive women or women in general, for that, reasoning, right?
We had I think Mia Yim, or was it Mercedes Martinez, that became members of Revolution or whatever they were called.
Yeah, but I think that was all just a Reckoning. She was
Reckoning, right? Yeah, some bullshit like that. And they all wear masks. I think Donovan Dijak might still wear a mask, sadly. So,
and I think there was some times where like some of them would. Like Luna Vachon would get behind a mask for, just to, or what was it with the Spider Woman? Was that like, I can't remember who that was. Was it Ivory?
Mae Young wore a mask.
Yeah, usually it's to disguise themselves for another reason.
Yeah.
Storyline wise, it's not anything where it becomes a permanent part of their existence, right? I mean...
Yeah, and that's something we didn't really mention much, but I did mention masks kind of as part of stories. You will have sometimes the wrestler come in with the mask and beat up somebody and then unmask, right? And be like, oh, it was really him. For example, do you remember when Dick Togo came in? Like,
right, as
everyone,
Bushi.
oh, it's Bushi, but then we're like, okay, that's not Bushi.
Or when The Undertaker came out as Kane. The very iconic moment there.
Okay.
You also had times where I think it was Ivory or somebody was like this Spider Woman character that stole the title from somebody, and then or Ric Flair did that thing with the Black Scorpion with Sting, and it was Ric Flair. So a lot of times the mask will be used as kind of a heel diversionary tactic, or what the late Owen Hart was doing. Unfortunately, when he passed away, where he was the Blue Blazer.
But he was also playing that character a bit before that, right?
He did before that, but leading up to his unfortunate passing,
as the Blue Blazer,
he was kept denying that he was the Blue Blazer.
Yeah.
So they
were going for that little story there.
Yeah. So the mask sometimes is used as a weapon for an unmasked heel.
Yeah.
To pull one over on the baby face, on the gullible baby face, right?
Definitely. Something I didn't mention is Lucha Underground. And, maybe we'll do a whole show on that because Lucha Underground was good. Let's not get too deep into how much we liked it and stuff now.
Right,
but definitely good for masked wrestlers, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they masked Ricochet and made him a completely different character. Puma King. And he was the hometown hero in that show, basically was the role he played, and completely different, not even I don't even think he talked.
He didn't even talk. His only thing was his moves.
Right. And that was freaking Ricochet, right?
Yeah. You had Aerostar, you had Sexy Star, like we mentioned. You have the Dragon guy. I forgot his name, but he kind of looked like a dragon.
Wasn't that Luchasaurus?
I don't remember.
I think Luchasaurus was on that show.
Keep talking.
And don't forget, Jeff Cobb was masked in that show as well.
Was he now?
Yeah, he was Matanza or something like that. He was the Dario Cueto. That was like kind of the big heel authority figure, right?
Oh.
He was he was his brother or something like that.
Okay. Was Killshot under a mask?
I know that Matt Cross was under a mask there too.
Because there was a guy. Let me find this look real quick because I think, and I didn't know this was him. Yeah, Killshot. Killshot wore a mask. He had like a kind of a bullet reticle. And do you know who Killshot is?
No.
It's Swerve Strickland. Swerve Strickland.
Oh, okay.
So, look, it's kind of cool. Lucha Underground is kind of cool because they had these masked guys that nowadays they're. Yeah, it's different. Luchasaurus played a wrestler named Vibora on that show.
Okay.
So, yeah, a lot of guys doing that stuff. Well, good segue. Luchasaurus, current tag team champion,
AEW tag team champion, right?
Yeah. So that's and Mariposa, she wore a mask too. But yeah, current tag team champion and. A very unique way to have a mask. He's kind of playing a joking, tongue-in-cheek character, right?
Half luchador, half dinosaur, Luchasaurus, right?
Yeah,
Just another big, intimidating dude without a mask. And you add that mask, and I know we talked about El Desperado and, Penta having that unique look, but I mean, this is a whole other level. It's not your traditional wrestling mask. It's almost like a Hollywood prop mask.
Yeah.
Or a Halloween costume mask.
Oh, yeah.
But, he kind of counters it with, the beard and the green tongue and all that stuff. And it almost looks like a part of his face in a way. It
does. It's really well made, actually. And like you said, it looks like something you might see in a movie from the 80s or something as a lizard person. So
exactly, yeah.
So very interesting there from Luchasaurus. How about a different type of mask we haven't talked about yet, and that would be Bandito and Doki.
Right, the kind of
draped bandana
style,
style, yeah.
Yeah, or where it just covers their nose and mouth.
Well, and Bandito has like a normal mask mixed with that, I believe.
Right. And I think his hair is still out and stuff like that, too. Those are definitely different, and they're just a little bit of a different take. There's probably a few other wrestlers that have done that similarly, too. But
different take, same effect.
Exactly. Same effect, absolutely. It just is a better... It's a good look if you have longer hair still.
Yeah, for sure. And Doki Doki really does it very differently. In fact, his mask looks extremely uncomfortable. He promos, it's like the guy sounds like he's having trouble breathing and talking.
Yeah, it seems like anytime you cover your face and your mouth, you're not going to breathe the same way. I know he's probably the most COVID conscious kind of mask that you can get, but I can see that being a little bit of a hindrance out there.
Constantly adjusting it too. So, but different type of mask, but as you said, kind of the same point there, with Doki actually being a Japanese wrestler who became kind of a Mexican wrestler. Okay. Oh, we're going to go a whole different direction here. All Japan, New Japan, WWF, Vader. Very different mask. Does not hide the dude's face, really.
Not necessarily did not really hide the dude's face.
But iconic.
Vader's mask, absolutely. Vader's mask was just done to it was a subtle enhancement of, basically a guy with no hair and kind of a red beard, right? And it really made his kind of eyes and mouth kind of just be more intimidating, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and do you remember his mask before that in All Japan, or excuse me, New Japan and WCW, where he had the mask that was actually a machine that he that he took off before his match?
Oh yeah, that was an entrance mask. It was like an elephant. I have the figure with all that. And
it had smoke that comes out of it.
Yeah, and I heard it was a pain in the ass to carry through airports.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. So, really cool.
And he wore a little bit more, like when he was IWGP champion, he had more of a traditional lucha mask, I think.
Did he?
Yeah, like a full mask.
It's funny, too, because obviously we're going to do wrestling and video games eventually, but like you've got characters in like King of Fighters, and I can't remember the KOF character's name, but think about it. He's a big, huge, chubby guy, wearing the exact same costume and a lucha mask, and directly based off of was his name Leon White?
Yes,
directly based off of Leon White. So really cool. In fact, there's a few masked wrestlers. Oh, his name was Raiden. A few masked wrestlers in KOF games,
and don't forget the Street Fighter. You had Vega, who was basically a pro wrestler in terms of his look.
I don't think he was a pro wrestler.
In his look, he had the mask and he had the long tights.
He did.
He was a pro wrestler's look, for sure.
He was a cage fighter, but he did kind of look like a pro wrestler, but also...
His look was pro wrestling and inspired, though. And then plus, you had...
not like Zangief. Okay, King from Tekken, yeah. Definitely, and Armor King.
Well, and Zangief was too. He was wearing Speedos.
No, Zangief was a wrestler, but in the story, Vega not a wrestler. But he did do a pile driver. The look, yeah. And also Vega could lose his mask during the match. That's another thing.
Right, and Vega was, totally wrestling-inspired, appearance for sure.
Yeah. There's Vader. We're gonna save this guy for later because he deserves to be talked about later. You got people like Hayabusa, and you go to Japan. It's Hayabusa, a very iconic wrestler who invented a lot of cool moves. He had a kind of a cool mask too, a very interesting mask. Kind of was his mask similar to Bandito?
Similar to Bandito. I don't think it had along with that bandana look at the bottom.
Oh, no, okay, it did not. No, it was more like a Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and it had a place for his hair to stick out, right?
It did, yeah.
So I think that's where the blend is of that. And then also he had kind of a below-the-waist look of like a Sabu, right? Mm-hmm. Where he wore the baggy kind of, genie-style pants, right?
Yeah, and to be fair here, Hayabusa has had many masks, so that all depends. But you can pick up his mask off of Etsy, so I'm trying to see how much that would cost.
Does it have the hair attached to it?
It's got the hair opened, so your hair can go through it.
Can I ask you, do you own any lucha mask?
I do not. Do you?
I have a La Parka mask. I was La Parka for Halloween a few times.
Really? With the full bodysuit?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you go down to...
At our age, we have the same body as him.
Yeah, right? You go down to Alvera Street in downtown L.A. and you can buy a bunch of lucha masks cheap.
How much? Like $30?
$15, $20.
Wow.
25, depending. and they have. I haven't seen Liger, but they have pretty much. They have so many. I think my kids they got a Nacho Libre. You know what though? Like a story like Nacho. First of all, that is the kind of point I want to. First, I want to mention La Parka. By the way, I'm glad we got La Parka in, a comedy wrestler in WCW with the chair, the little dances he would do. He was very entertaining.
And is this the same guy as nowadays that does the dives and almost killed?
There was one that died recently.
There's like 5 of them, dude.
Yeah, I think the original one's the one that we see that's a little overweight now.
L.A. Park.
Or the one that we saw in that. Yeah, that's the one we saw in WCW in the 90s. The Lucha mask itself is a pop culture staple, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
we see taco restaurants with using that as a logo.
Mm-hmm.
The Lucha
I knew a video
mask
game
is
website that had a Lucha mask on a deer, and that was their logo.
Right. The Lucha mask is a pop culture icon, and kind of transcends into the mainstream,
Definitely.
for what it is. And, kind of case in point, if we're talking about wrestling and mask, a movie like Nacho Libre, as I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good movie.
Silver King was in it.
Silver King was in it, yeah, the late Silver King. But it did kind of a really good job of emphasis, of accurately depicting the importance of a mask, right? Or the tradition of a mask in its own way, right? I mean,
I've never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen Nacho Libre?
No, it looked like kind of a shitty kids movie to me.
It's really good. It's funny. Okay. Jack Black is great in it. But basically, the guy's got to wear him. He's a like a I don't know if he's like a he works in a church as a chef. And he starts wrestling, as for extra money, and of course when he goes on TV and stuff, he has to wear a mask so no one at the church or anyone recognizes him, right?
Ah,
so that's where Nacho Libre comes in because he had to disguise his identity, to his his church or where he was belonging to. So. I would definitely check out the movie. Did you like Napoleon Dynamite? It's the same people.
Not really, but
it's like a Napoleon's Dynamite style. But Jack Black is funny.
Jack Black is great. So you're right though. They are kind of they've become part of not only Mexican culture but kind of American culture as well. Because I mean, if not worldwide, everyone knows about them for the most part. So yeah, I mean, you'll see. It's almost transcended wrestling in a way, right? Like they're selling those masks in LA. They're not all wrestling fans that buy those. All sorts of people are buying that stuff. Right.
And they're appreciated not only for the significance of wrestling, but just the artwork and the cultural significance.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, the Wikipedia article says that they've become like staples of a lot of artists' work nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drawing the masks or masked characters. In fact, not only you listed that movie, right? What about that Pixar movie with the Mexican culture? What was that one called again?
Coco.
With the kid that plays the guitar and stuff.
Coco.
Yeah, Coco. So that one had a lot of lucha stuff in it too, right? Remember definitely, dude. The main guy, the main guy who they were having his big party and stuff was based off of El Santo, the famous Mexican wrestler.
I guess. Yeah, I mean the story itself didn't really have any lucha, but yeah, El Santo is a whole other character to mention because not only was he a wrestler, but he starred in numerous movies, feature movies with the mask on. He was like, kind of like a superhero as well. For sure.
But I was just saying, like, it had so much generic Mexican culture in that movie, that it even has celebrated the lucha stuff. Some of the dead kind of skeleton people were wearing lucha masks in the background and stuff. So,
yeah, to a degree, yeah.
And I guess we can talk about El Santo, probably maybe the most famous masked wrestler of all time. He transcended wrestling. I've heard it said that he makes like Hulk Hogan look like nothing with how popular he was. He was like a god to a lot of Mexican people. And he was so famous with his mask that actually he was buried with his mask. Did you know that?
I'm not surprised. And then also guys like Blue Demon as well.
Blue Demon, yeah. So, I mean, there was a time where these masked dudes were larger than life, for sure. And like you said, they're doing movies as their masked character.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Real crazy. Sasuke, another great Japanese masked wrestler. Did you know that this dude actually got voted into the Japanese government as a masked man?
No, I did not.
I mean, look, we got Kane, right? Terrible politician, total dumbass.
Yeah.
However, wouldn't it have been cool if he would have ran as Kane?
I mean, he might as well at this point.
He might as well, so maybe we wouldn't know who he was, and we
it's
talk
kind of
more shit
interesting
about
though,
him.
because I don't want to go off on him too much, so never mind.
Speak your truth.
Kane. No, I'm just saying, like, you always heard good stories about how good of a guy he was, and how, just how much of a team player, and everyone got along with him, and all that stuff.
And then he has just terrible.
There's like we've talked about. There's a lot of just really friendly, nice people with absolutely shitty political beliefs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He seems like the type of dude that is tweeting right now about how guns aren't the problem, people are the problem. But
listen, we have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends where I just don't go there with them because I like to coexist with them, and I still get along with them, and we still have shared values that we are able to. Well, I don't want to get too much on politics with it, but
no.
The bottom line is I still try and coexist with people and get along with people. I don't know if that's right or wrong with what's going on, but I still try to make the best of things.
No, but you are totally right, and I agree. Just because you're a really nice guy and you work well with everyone doesn't mean you can't secretly have fucking evil opinions. And I mean, let's be honest here, like, it's wrestling, it's not politics. There is politics in wrestling, but a different type of politics than governmental politics. Yeah. So probably kept a lot of that stuff to himself and his close friends. So Ultimo Dragon, another big time masked wrestler from Japan, but really a mix of Japanese and Mexico, right?
I mean, yeah, and I think one of the, at least to me, one of the most iconic, kind of images is him with all those damn titles, championship belts, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
and
all
with,
13.
Was it Sonny Ono or whoever it was leading him out when he was in WCW?
Yeah.
No, he's, definitely an iconic one for sure.
Yeah, still going.
Still going, is he really?
He's in Dragon Gate. He's been everywhere. Wow. I just saw something the other day that said that he had just got a text from Okada, right? And he thought it was about wrestling, and it was just, hey, can we meet up? I wanted to say hi. Kind of a cute little story there, and he was saying Okada's just a normal dude, Huh. As Okada was trained in Toryumon, in Mexico, right?
Right, yeah, he went to Mexico when he was like 16 or something, maybe even younger.
Yeah, and maybe I meant Dragon, his like group. I don't know if that was called Toryumon. I think that's a little different. Shun Skywalker. Do you know who Shun Skywalker is?
I've heard the name.
He's a Dragon Gate guy. He was champion not too long ago. He became a bad guy, but he's kind of the future of masked wrestling. Very good wrestler. Really cool mask, and looking forward to seeing more from him. Again, he was, I don't think people know who he is. He was put in with the mask, but yeah, good stuff. Along with when we talk about the future of masked wrestling, how about Starlight Kid?
Yeah, Starlight Kid.
Talked about her quite a bit on this show.
There's not too many of them, that's for sure, but she might be the most prominent masked female, right? I mean, who else is there outside of that Nikki Ash character, which is terrible, right?
It's a joke, yeah. No, you're right. She's great.
Unless you consider Thunder Rosa's half face paint, which is an incredible look. but not quite what you'd call a masked wrestler.
Yeah, and Thunder Rosa has no problem doing just her face, like with no face paint. Where we've never seen Starlight Kid before.
Nope. And when you do see her on social media, she usually covers her face.
Yeah.
And I think, and to a degree, Abaddon kind of does that too. With the level of makeup that AEW's Abaddon wears,
yeah,
it's almost like you can consider her a masked wrestler.
Yeah. I could see that. So we brought up El Santo, Atlantis. Do you know Atlantis?
No, I do not.
Pretty legendary wrestler from like the 90s, early 2000s. I think he's still going, and he's been in Japan for some of those Japanese New Japan Mexico shows. And another guy that kind of went up there along with Los Villanos the Third. Again, Los Villanos versus Atlantis is a really great match from the early 2000s. Weirdly enough, it was on like Fox Sports back in the day. Is that odd or what?
That is odd. Another thing to kind of mention, it kind of wedged it into the 90s, was the Patriot.
Yeah, and I have him written down here too, who was Johnny, what's his name?
Del Wilkes.
Oh, that was Del Wilkes. I'm getting him mixed up with John Laurinaitis. Sorry.
No. Yeah, he recently passed away, the Patriot. Another guy with a great look in terms of his, physique and whatnot. But, it was interesting, though. He was the Patriot, an American character, yet he was wearing a luchador mask, right?
Yeah. Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then Hogan put on that stupid mask, too, and whatever he was, and that's it. That's all we'll mention with him.
Yeah. So, sorry, I got it mixed up with John Laurinaitis, but the Patriot also, All Japan guy, So, in the 90s and early and mid-90s, he was wrestling in All Japan. So, kind of an interesting one there. Like you said, this American dude with the lucha mask. Another weird one was Mr. Wrestling 2, who was this British dude that wore kind of this weird mask, and he actually passed away recently, but he was Mr. Wrestling, right? British guy, and as I said before, and had this total lucha mask on. And I'm sorry, he was actually American. I take that back. I might have got it mixed up with someone else, but Mr. Wrestling 2. I mean, now that, no one else can have that name, so...
No.
There can be Mr. Wrestling 3.
3.
Yeah, we'll see about that. So let's check him off. How about Curry Man?
Yeah, Christopher Daniels' alter ego of Curry Man. Interesting.
Was that a New Japan thing? Because I don't really...
I think so. I think it was a New Japan thing. Might have been... Sounds like it's got Chikara written all over it, but...
Definitely, which we'll get to here.
Yeah, I think he was mostly known for his New Japan kind of junior stuff as well.
Mil Mascaras, Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, some more iconic masked wrestlers, right? A lot of those, and WCW helped bring a lot of those masked wrestlers to our screens as when we were young,
Yes, with the evolution of the cruiserweight division.
Mm-hmm. So real cool stuff there. Those guys are all awesome. We got Dragon Kid from Dragon Gate, another masked wrestler who's been going. We don't know his name. But he's been kind of the face of the company when he was younger. He is like the, ultimate baby face, Dragon Gate. He's Dragon Kid, right? It's almost like Captain New Japan if he was actually a really good wrestler who could do so.
Another one to squeeze in from that Attitude Era was when they took Earthquake and stuck him in a mask and he was Golga. Where he was that Cartman obsessed guy in the oddities.
That was him?
Yeah.
You know what's funny, man? I looked up...
John Tenta.
I looked up, best masks and best unmasking, and all the lists are WWE lists, right? And they were so lame, dude. It's like Golga. I'm like, no one cares about Golga. I'm glad you bring it up, but I didn't write a lot of that stuff down. It's like...
Yeah, well, it's just that was where no one knew who he was. Like, I mean, obviously, it was terrible, and even as Earthquake, he was terrible. But that was someone that they just put on a mask, and no one knew who he was.
And that's all you got to do. It's a good way of changing a person's gimmick like we've talked about. Do you remember when CM Punk ran in with a mask on some random ass match in Wisconsin or Minnesota?
Yeah, that was it. Well, he also wore a mask for a minute too when he had to shave his head, right?
Yes, but this was when he was retired and actually
Right.
ran out
Yes.
there and did a quick GTS and ran away.
So
So,
weird. Yeah.
mask is very powerful. And yes, he wore a mask also during his little run, right?
Yeah.
And what happened? He shaved his head and he was embarrassed.
Yeah, I think he shaved his head and he started wearing it because he lost a hair match against like I don't know Big Show or something like that.
Here's a good question. What wrestlers should be masked that are not? I'm thinking
Master Wato.
Master Wato, definitely. Brian Cage, I think.
Brian Cage could benefit from it. A good looking dude though.
Good looking dude, but the mask I think would add to his character.
I think it would enhance. Yeah, I think it would be. It wouldn't be bad.
Master Wato's probably the number one because he wrestles lucha style. He was in Mexico. He has a not great looking face for a wrestler, and that only has hurt his career. And the images they put up him are terrible too.
I think somebody like him would have been a good kind of the next Tiger Mask or something like that. But obviously they didn't. I think there's somebody else.
Which is constantly like the rumor of the next Tiger Mask. In my opinion, you don't need to have a next Tiger Mask, and I don't.
You don't.
But I've heard people saying Yuya Uemura. Who knows?
He's too big though, isn't he?
He's a bigger guy, right?
I don't think he's gonna be a cruiserweight. That dude's building up too big for that.
Well, what do you think Clark Connors is, dude?
Yeah, but he's not 5'8" or 5'5" or 6" or whatever Clark Connors is. He's a little bigger than that. He's like
is he
5'10", 5'11". Yeah, I don't think
you're saying this from experience, right?
What, from wearing a mask?
No, from seeing him live.
Uemura was big. Yeah, I think so.
Have you stood next to him?
Not necessarily.
You can't look it up because you know that stuff's all fake. But.
Right, but they're not going to say he's 6'2" when he's 5'5".
How tall is Great O'Khan?
He's taller than me, and I'm 6 feet.
Is he a much taller than you or a little taller than you?
He's a good 2 inches taller than me. He's probably 6'2".
Okay.
6'3".
He's a wrestler.
He's pretty big. Yeah.
Cool.
Uemura is 5'11". So
that's way taller than I thought.
Yeah, so he's probably Tanahashi's size instead of height.
What?
Tanahashi's probably 5'10".
Oh, dude, I thought he was Clark Connors' height. I'm sorry.
No, Clark Connors is probably 5'7".
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's why Clark Connors, is where he is. Uemura is not. Is I don't know. They could throw him in there. I mean, Shingo Takagi's like 5'11", and he was kind of crazy to be a junior, but
maybe the first few years and let him work his way up. How about Dragon Lee, one of the better masked wrestlers of the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, I would definitely compare Dragon Lee to Rey Fenix in terms of the appearance and everything. A little bit better wrestler.
I like Dragon Lee because he is completely fit. Absolutely, anyone would kill to have his body. And he's got just the little mask and the tights, and really
more
cool
of
look to him.
The simple traditional lucha look.
Yeah. Kind of like Sin Cara as well. And there's been multiple Sin Caras. I don't know who they all are. The most recent one was not that great, to be honest. And he kind of came and went.
Was it one of the guys, Hunico or whatever?
Yeah, something like that, man.
Yeah, he was like a gang member kind of gimmick for a while, and then they threw him under that mask. And then the guy who was the original Mystico, was that the original?
Yeah.
Sin Cara was kind of an asshole.
It's all confusing. You got Mystico, Caristico, Drilistico, and like who is whose brother and who is what used to be who. It's very confusing. Cybernetic. Anyways. Okay, we got three more. Well, first let's move to Chikara real quick. So Chikara was kind of known for having masked competitors, right?
Yeah, I think that was a whole thing about Chikara. It was like kind of like fever dream wrestling in a way, right?
Yeah, lots of comedy spots, but also some kind of serious stuff. Do you know the wrestlers that have gone on from masked wrestling to normal wrestling? quote unquote.
From Chikara or just in general?
From Chikara.
You'd have to. Well, El Generico, right?
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. But Sami Zayn, he was a masked wrestler for years, and he was great.
Yeah, it was interesting that he was a masked wrestler that didn't really say a lot of words.
Ole.
And Ole. And basically his gimmick was he was from like an orphanage or something like that. It was almost like that's what it was with Nacho Libre. He works in a religious orphanage or whatever.
He was a generic luchador.
El Generico, hence Generico. And I think it was it was kind of a Nacho Libre style gimmick, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't speak at all either.
Nope. He just kicked ass.
WWE got a hold of him, ripped off the mask, and that kind of thing.
And probably for the better in his case. He was a pretty good-looking guy and a great baby face.
He was in Chikara, is that right?
I'm sure he was in Chikara.
Yeah.
And PWG and all sorts of stuff. But yes,
yeah,
and DDT too. But yes, he was in...
He was?
Yeah, he was in DDT. He did like their outdoor stuff sometimes. Like we're talking back in the day when like Omega and Ibushi were, so.
Right.
Fire Ant. Do you know who Fire Ant is? The Ant Collective.
I've heard of it.
You had the Ant Collective, right? Everyone was a different ant. And
what did Fire Ant go on to be?
Fire Ant is nowadays known as Orange Cassidy.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep. He was pretty popular. You had Dasher Hatfield, who kind of reminds me of someone you had brought up before. What's that lame dude's name? Well, I won't say that because I've heard he's a nice guy, but what's the guy's name that you see in L.A. with the mask and the little monocle on his mask?
Oh, Jervis Cottonbelly?
Talk about Jervis Cottonbelly for about 10 seconds. I'll be right back in 10 seconds.
Okay, well, Jervis Cottonbelly, he's an LA guy now, but he was in Chikara because he's from Philadelphia. And he's a guy that had kind of a masked gimmick where he was like this proper English gentleman, right? And, he would wear kind of a top hatish type of thing, and he would, had like the Cottonbelly kind of rabbit, belly fuzzy stuff, and he's a comedy wrestler.
Yeah.
And he also he's an interesting guy too, because if you go on his social media and stuff, he has another, his unmasked gimmick was some Kevin Condren or whatever. And,
oh, really?
And he's actually like a really handsome dude that probably doesn't need a mask. And he has two kind of personalities he uses, and I guess he kind of blends them together as well. But he's a really talented dude.
Yeah. Well,
he's a really talented dude in terms of as a performer. I've seen him, in person a lot, and really nice guy too. I've interacted with him a few times, and given him some of my drawings because I've drawn him a few times and stuff. So. Yeah, really cool, talented guy.
I said we wouldn't talk about him, but hey, there we are. When I need to run away for 10 seconds. When I need to run away for 10 seconds.
He deserves mention in kind of the modern, if you're, we do the deep dives here.
True.
And he's worthy of a deep dive for sure. Wrestling and mask, for sure.
Former bar wrestling regular, right?
He was a not regular.
LA guy?
He was there. Well, he's located in LA now, but I think he's from Philly.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he was probably in Chikara.
Soldier Ant. Do you know who Soldier Ant is today?
Was it Trent?
A.K.A. Drew Gulak.
Drew Gulak, okay. I have almost no knowledge of Chikara, so...
Well, we'll talk about them one day too, right? That's just another topic, and we'll go back and watch, 5 matches and, talk about that. That'll be fun. I saved 3 guys for last. And, guys, there's a million people we didn't mention. Your favorite masked wrestler that we didn't mention. I apologize.
Yes, please tell us. Yeah,
we'd love to hear it.
I was trying to throw in as many names I could think of off the top of my head, and just that needed to kind of fit in. But I know we missed some, and we probably missed some big ones.
There's probably some. They would say, "What about this guy?" And you and I would go, "Oh my God, how did we miss that?" So there's
wrestling and more mask.
Wrestling and masks too. Or look, we can always do a correction segment. The only reason we don't is because, to be honest, listeners, we don't get enough engagement. But we got some engagement today on something I posted on Twitter, and we'll talk about that in a minute here too. I saved these three for last. The first is Dick Bear, the Destroyer. What do you know about him?
Mm-hmm. Other than probably being one of the earliest, masked wrestlers
in America,
North America.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pretty much a heel. Don't know too much other than that.
Yeah. This guy became huge in Japan. He had some legendary feuds with why isn't the name coming into me? All-time Japanese wrestler. One of the most famous Japanese wrestlers of all time, Ricky Dozan. Okay? So check this out. In early 63, Bayer wrestled 3 sold-out matches against Giant Baba, okay, in Los Angeles. In May 1963, he went to Japan for the first time, and he wrestled Ricky Dozan. And in this match, do you know how many people watched this match, dude? 70 million viewers.
What?
70 million. Bro, WWE Raw does 2 million viewers, okay?
Right.
Is that just wild?
I mean, it is.
It was a different time, yes. There was no smartphone, but it does matter. Like 70 million viewers, dude. He was also called Dr. X. Do you know the story about his kind of... Well, I'm just going to tell it because I don't think you do. So we'll talk about his... Not so much unmasking, but when people found out who he was, and it's a great story. So Dick Bear, the Destroyer, he would wrestle all over America, right? And then he would get in his car and leave. And eventually someone just fucking watched him go to his car and wrote down his license plate and started making calls.
Old school heat right there.
Yeah, so they just made calls, and they're like, who's this plate belong to? And they're like, Dick Bear. And it's like, oh, fuck. So, before the internet, he still got outed. But he had a real interesting mask. It was a white, almost like whitey-tighty colored mask with the big holes for his nose, mouth, and eyes. In a way, you can see the guy's whole face through his mask, But, and he had a big red line going over it. He also had the Dr. X mask, which is much scarier, just all black mask with holes for the eyes. And he's got those bright blue eyes. So, huge, big-time wrestler and a legend, definitely in Japan and America. They've done entire events dedicated him in Japan for charity. So, in fact, I saw one that had Hiromu as a young lion in a battle royal. So, nice. Good stuff there. The next is Tiger Mask. But Tiger Mask is not Tiger Mask, right? Tiger Mask is a lot of different stuff.
Right. So, I mean, Tiger Mask is one of the most iconic, Asian masked wrestlers, right? And there's been numerous incarnations of him as well, right?
Numerous incarnations. So the most recent incarnation was actually Kota Ibushi, right? He played Tiger Mask W. So I mean the recent new incarnation. And then I think ACH played the bad guy across from him.
Really?
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. You also have the current New Japan Tiger Mask, who good wrestler. We know him. I don't know his name exactly. I'm trying to find it.
He's the fourth Tiger Mask or something, right? Or something like that. And he's probably in his early 50s at this point.
Yeah, I mean he's a couple of years away from probably retiring. So I'm getting this list here. Okay, there we go. So that Tiger Mask is this Tiger Mask 5? There's been so many now that like, okay, that's Yoshihiro Yamazaki. Okay, and he started in Michinoku Pro, got to New Japan, and he became Tiger Mask, and he does a good job. I think he's done a good job. Sure. I would have loved to see him when he was younger, but never got that chance. There was a Tiger Mask 5 in IGF as Minnow.
Yeah.
Huh?
Was it the go ahead, finish then.
Ikuhisa Minowa.
Yeah, wasn't it some kind of MMA shoot guy that was doing it or something like that?
It was, and actually I've heard this guy's an awesome MMA fighter too.
Huh.
So we're gonna have to learn more about this. I've heard a lot about this guy, Minowa Man, and I've heard he was real good stuff about him. And he was actually, he debuted against Quentin Rampage Jackson, so in Pride. It's very interesting, but not quite what we're talking about here with wrestling. And although there is that kind of bleed into martial arts. Tiger Mask 3, Koji Kanemoto. Koji Kanemoto, well-known wrestler from New Japan, but really wasn't Tiger Mask for super long. He took after Misawa, and he lost a mask versus match against Liger, and then he was Koji Kanemoto again. So, Tiger Mask 2, legendary Mitsuhara Misawa.
Wow.
You know the story there?
No, tell me.
Well, he was wrestling under Tiger Mask. He was smaller, and they wanted him to be that, the next Tiger Mask. And there was this awesome, really, and it's on YouTube and stuff, and it was so great. He had great matches too. Of course, it's Misawa. He blew out his knee before one match, and still had like this incredible match. Needed surgery afterwards, and he had that aerial style. And eventually they decided for his teammate to just unmask him and throw it out to the crowd and move on. What we talked about, unmasking to become who you really are, or a different incarnation, right? And that's what they did, man. They made him into Misawa, someone we're going to do a whole episode about eventually, but that mask meant a lot for Misawa, and it was a big deal about him changing. And ever since that, his moves were the Tiger Driver, Tiger Suplex, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
Tiger Mask. And then there's the original, the original Tiger Mask, who everyone should know his name, but I forgot it, and now I have to look it up, sadly. And this guy is Satoru Sayama. This guy is the best Tiger Mask. He embodies Tiger Masks. He's so ahead of his time that you watch him now, and it looks like it really looks like something like you would see nowadays.
Right, a little ahead of his time. Yeah,
way ahead of his time with legendary matches against Dynamite Kid. But the thing they all had in common was that Tiger Mask, which was a comic book character.
Right.
So, cool mask too, right? They've all had pretty cool masks.
Yeah, definitely.
Black Tiger.
Definitely the tiger look with the ears and then like kind of the sideburny fur, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and don't forget Rocky Romero and Eddie Guerrero, right?
As Black Tiger.
As Black Tiger.
Yes.
So,
some kind of a spin-off, if you will.
Kind of a spin-off, and the alter ego, the evil alter ego kind of guy.
Right.
So and what?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna move on. I would say we saved one guy for last. Who do you think we saved for last?
Just go. Who is it?
What's the rush here?
No, I want to know who it is because I feel like we've done a good job.
It's Liger
of covering. Well, oh yeah, I think we've hinted at him before. Yes, I mean Jushin Thunder Liger is the greatest masked wrestler of all time, and I agree. Be comfortable to say it's not even close.
I agree, and we talk about being able to emote with the mask on. This guy could emote 10 times more than most unmasked wrestlers wearing a mask.
And he's also probably the most well-rounded and internationally, great matches all over the world as well.
All over the world. He had a long career. He never really slowed down. He always kept going.
No, I mean, the only thing you can say about the guy, and that's just kind of the character of, just who he is he, probably the last, 4 or 5 years of his career, he lost to pretty much everyone on the way out. And that's just the kind of guy he was.
Also a trainer at the dojo. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys you see today are influenced by him in New Japan. I mean, there's no doubt he's one of the head trainers there.
Nakamura said that he's the reason he became a wrestler.
Yeah, I believe it. And if you ever see, there's this old documentary of I saw years ago of the dojo getting a makeover. Mm-hmm. And he's highly featured in it as having a back room where he lives in, and him being a huge Godzilla fan. Yeah, he had a whole room back there that he lived in.
You think he lives?
I mean,
there
I don't
part
think
of the
he stayed
time?
there every night, but he had his quarters there.
Wow, he's so respected. He has his own little apartment in there.
Well, not apartment. It was just like a room, his dorm. But yeah, because he was one of the head guys there, and he was, one of his little side things was he would make Godzilla models.
Oh wow, he's that much of a nerd, huh?
Yeah, he was a huge Godzilla fan. So
Vegeta.
Yeah, so definitely iconic, and I think he might be the most famous masked wrestler in the world, in the history, right? I mean,
in the world, as far
people
as
have
worldwide.
I've seen that before. Even if it's like I've seen that mask before, I've seen that guy before. Is he a Power Ranger? No, he's not. But he's had in every 70s, 80s, 90s, and all the way up to now.
I knew who he was even when I was a kid for some reason. Not sure how, because this was before he wrestled in WCW, but I don't know. It was so omnipresent, ever present, that you looked at a wrestling magazine, you're probably going to see a picture of him. And so, without getting into too much of how great he is, because we could talk about that. That's another whole episode, right?
Absolutely.
The look of his mask was really cool. It was more than a mask. It was an entire body suit with the mask, too. Very unique mask.
Definitely head to toe with the whole thing, and not your typical look. It was more of like a 70s, kind of a Power Ranger-y look, right?
It was very Japanese, yeah, and it definitely came from the comic as well. But the spikes coming out of the head, which was just,
and the hair,
the long hair. Another thing. Well, I say let's, but I was gonna say, again, we talk about emoting with the masks. No one can emote better. And show that you don't need to show your face to emote. This dude could play a dastardly heel. He could play an incredible baby face. Everything. And we knew what he was feeling and his emotions, because the mask, it didn't matter. I mean, he sold it all with his body. I'm seeing... right now, I'm seeing Great Sasuke on the finals of the Best of the Super Juniors, when Great Sasuke fucked up on the springboard, and Liger starts clapping, good job, buddy. Good job. You failed at the last minute. And it's just a great look. It's a mask that hardcore Puto fans all want to own. And he's done different colors too. He's had he has the greenish blue. He's done red. He's done black. Yeah. And
all colors.
Who can forget Chris Jericho as the other Liger guy?
Well, that was something that we said we never talk about, right?
White Liger.
Something like that. One
One of his worst matches of his career. So I went on Twitter, by the way, and I asked who people's favorite masked wrestlers were. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I got for you and I think we would both say Liger, right? We kind of said that already.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Andy says Pentagon Jr. who he says is legitimately one of the coolest wrestlers ever. Can't disagree with that.
No, can't disagree with that. Definitely.
My friend Buttocks says, and Buttocks, shout out to him. He's kind of with Baked.live, Baked.tv. So he says that Curry Man is his favorite masked wrestler. A little tongue in cheek there, but that's fun. And
Sure.
Jose Maria Gomez with a very respectable answer. Dick Bayer, the Destroyer, is his favorite masked wrestler.
Going old school.
Who is your guys' favorite masked wrestler? Go ahead and let us know. Write in, send us a message on Twitter. We'd love to hear it. And the last thing I want to talk about with masks is that I think, honestly, that AEW has brought respect to masks again in America.
I mean, definitely with the presentation of, specifically the Lucha Brothers, right?
Yeah, and Luchasaurus, but
and having a masked announcer.
Masked announcer? Have we seen a masked ref?
Well, not unless the face mask that they're wearing in New Japan.
So no.
I think that's a little bit of a distraction.
Well, that's true. You don't want the ref to be like the focal point of the match, but how about we get a referee and we put a mask on him with the black and white stripes, Mm-hmm. That'd be cool. Would you be down?
No.
I
think we're okay. I mean, I can understand having a masked wrestler as a special guest referee at some point, but you don't need to do that anytime soon.
If Phoenix or if Penta was a masked referee, though, he would fit right in with the black and the white.
Well, a lot of times former wrestlers become referees, so why not make Bushi a referee?
Great idea, and just keep the gimmick going.
Yeah.
I love it. He'll wear his Venom mask with the tongue hanging out as he...
There you go.
As he is going. So, and I was just talking about the future of masks. Mexico is Mexico, and Japan is Japan. Very consistent as far as that's gone. Mexico is always going to be the place where you get your mask. But I think America, in WWE... there's not a lot of respect for masks. There's Rey Mysterio, right? And that's pretty much it.
Well, they had guys like Kalisto and
the Lucha Party, but those dudes quickly became 24/7 belt.
Yeah, fodder, right? But I think that they'll never have like a top guy as a masked.
Never.
I mean, of course, Rey Mysterio had a little bit of a run, but he was someone that we've seen unmasked and all that, but I don't think they'll ever have a masked guy. And Kane
Rey
even had it for one day.
Never pushed, he's...
The Fiend had it for a minute, but we knew who he was before. So I don't really think they're ever going to have a luchador or a masked guy, especially as a champion. I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's just not...
They want a real face to put on posters and be on Good Morning America, I guess.
Even trying to push for the Latin American audience, they still want your dudes with no mask, handsome guys, Humberto Carrillo, people like that.
Well, and that's why they probably gave Alberto Del Rio so many chances, right?
Yeah, probably. Shit. And look what happened to him. So I think times are changing in America, but that goes for a lot of stuff as far as AEW goes. A lot of respect for masked wrestlers, for the mask, even some funny gimmicky stuff there too, kind of like Cody wearing a mask during his performance with his little homeboy. I forget that dude's name. He's kind of like the worst wrestler in AEW.
I don't remember.
Is it
Fuego del Sol or something?
Fuego del Sol. Yeah, that's right. From what, North Carolina or from Tennessee or
I'm not sure.
or something.
Isn't he Sammy Guevara's buddy?
They were, but now Guevara's a heel. You got Ninja Mac, who is a jobber on AEW, but he's actually pretty good. He wrestled in Noah recently.
Right, and, I think he went to Noah, and I hear he's super talented. He's out here a lot. I haven't really seen him in person yet, but I hear he's fun to watch.
But they had him job out hardcore to someone recently. Maybe it was Wardlow or something, or Keith Lee. So, I think times are changing, and I'm excited, but masks, crucial part of wrestling. You have to know about them to be a wrestling fan, and hopefully we've kind of filled some of those gaps in that you didn't know in your knowledge and help you understand the history a little bit. And Justin?
Yes.
You ready to talk about something else for just a little bit here?
Yeah. I am.
Quickly, Justin. Or not too quickly. Don't hurry up too much. We both have been missing the Best of the Super Juniors this year, right?
I mean, I've watched spots of it, just haven't had the time or the sometimes you'll get to the end of the day and it's like I am gonna fall asleep after, because it's just you're tired and you don't have the time to give it the attention that it deserves, right?
Yeah. Whoa. Breaking audio on the MJF situation. This is breaking audio, which means that they recorded it kind of out of nowhere. Maybe we'll talk about I'll listen after our show because I'm not going to listen as we
Well, it's going to be old news by the time we put this out there anyway.
Yeah, that's weird, breaking audio. They usually only do that in emergencies. So okay. Best of the Super Juniors results. So right now we have El Phantasmo and El Desperado, Robbie Eagles, El Lindaman, and Wheeler Yuta all at the top of B block. Actually, Eagles, Lindaman, and Yuta a couple points below, but Yuta getting his redemption. So he's gone 4-3.
Okay.
So we got those people in the mix. El Lindaman realistically could make it to the finals, too.
Yeah, he's had a strong showing in terms of just seeing him.
He's also a champion.
Yeah.
So
whatever thing that's called, the
G-Rex,
Tyrannosaurus, yeah, Brontosaurus title, whatever it's called.
El Desperado could win this thing too, and we could have another Despy Hiromu match.
I think we're getting Despy to win this whole thing.
Definitely possible. On the other side, Ace Austin and Taiji Ishimori both with 10 points. Ace Austin looking good.
Him and Alex Zane have really shined and got over with the fans. I know that we talked about Zane a little bit, you and I personally, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But if you saw, he had a huge line for his, whatever, fan fest thing.
And you drew a picture of him?
Yeah, and he retweeted it, which is cool.
Awesome. And Ace Austin, I was telling you yesterday, he jumped into one of my conversations randomly, which is pretty cool too. Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, we've said it. It really behooves these guys to interact with the fans, right?
It's always helpful, but it's balanced with their mental health as well. Like, should they be going online?
Yeah, if you're of sound mind and can, handle the interaction, the good and the bad, then it's not a bad idea to dive in and be involved.
Yeah, definitely. And I talked to him over DM. So Ace Austin, thank you for that, Ace. A really cool guy that I wasn't a huge fan of before, but now I definitely want to buy a shirt from him. He's hit me up, and so yes, it does behoove you. Certain fans love you just give them a hello, and that's enough for us to cheer for you.
So yeah, acknowledge us.
Acknowledge me.
Someone said, yes.
Forgot who said that. That was from Frasier, right?
That's Roman Reigns, dude.
No, come on, go with the joke.
Frasier.
Taiji Ishimori also up there. Taiji Ishimori, he's kind of one of those people he could win anything. You never know. They always sometimes put him up at that top spot.
Yeah, but him being the title holder, I don't really think, I don't, unless he just makes the final and loses, but yeah, I don't think so.
The thing that bothers me is Clark Connors and Francisco Akira each have 6 points. I really wanted to see Francisco Akira come out stronger. He's a great wrestler. He's taken some of Will Ospreay's junior moves, which is really awesome. And Clark...
I think they're probably angling him for those tag titles with PJP.
Oh, I could see that. I could see that. And Clark Connors, who was great too, and finally back in Japan. I know he was very disappointed he didn't have any main events. But, he's got to understand in Japan, it's not WWE. They're not going to be like, unless you're Okada, they're not going to be like, guy comes back and wins everything. Like, you're going to have to work to get to that point.
Yeah, he's going to have to build up from scratch again. Or now that he has the gimmick, he has to build up, from scratch.
So when we get G1 announcements, Justin, what are you hearing? Is it going to be this Best of Super Juniors finals, or is it?
I would imagine that, they would probably announce the competitors. Probably, what's the road to after Best of the Super Dominion?
Dominion after that. They might do it at Dominion, though.
I think they either do it during the Dominion road to, or they'll do it at Dominion, yeah.
And we have Japanese crowds cheering again! Woo!
Is that already official or not yet?
It is not official yet, although certain events are doing it. And I think it's coming real soon. And this is what we have been waiting for years, Justin. We've talked about it on almost every podcast.
Not an exaggeration.
If you were a Japanese fan, how excited would you be right now for this?
I'm pretty excited, to be honest.
Wrestling is back.
Absolutely.
Wrestling is back. I heard rumors that they might have certain sections where you could pay more to cheer. Wouldn't that be messed up?
I don't. That's ridiculous. But letting it go this long was a little ridiculous. So who knows?
Yeah, I agree. Very, very exciting. This is company changing. This is wrestling changing. We're finally going back to... everyone, when COVID was going on, people were like, well, once the movie theaters open, everyone's going to go back. And what happened was, things opened so slowly that there was no, celebration. It was a very slow process, right?
Well, I mean, movie theaters before the pandemic were kind of struggling anyway, right? I think
so. With
the way home technology is for, most TVs look better than a movie screen these days, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the thing I'm saying is that we all had this idea that one day everything would open up and we would all just go back to our normal lives, but it was a much more gradual experience than that.
And it still isn't quite there yet. There's still small things that aren't quite what they were. So,
getting tested every week.
Yeah, stuff like that. But I mean, it'll be. I guess the new normal is the way you hear everyone say it, but it'll be a little notch below normal is where we'll end up, I think.
And it's called the living with COVID strategy. It's just, it has become part of our lives. And, we're going to keep doing the things we did. So it's very exciting that this is happening. If this is happening at the Best of the Super Junior show, oh man, I'm going to be so excited. The question is, how much has it affected the fans, though, over the years? That's going to be an interesting question to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, are they going to not do it for a little while and ease into it, or are they just going to go all out? Who knows?
Yeah, it depends on how much they drink, I'm sure, right?
Sure, yeah, if they're allowed to there. They still might not allow food and stuff. Who knows?
They allow drinks, though, right?
I don't know.
You gotta have water.
Have to drink, yeah. Basic human survival, right?
Allow these Japanese fans to get drunk. So very, very exciting news there. Best of Super Juniors, not quite as hot as it's been, but it hasn't been for a few years, right?
I think it's as hot as it's been in the last few years for sure. It's just that we haven't had the chance to really dive in.
I don't think it's as hot as it's been. I think it's right down there with the last couple of years where not many people are talking about it. Not many.
Well, I mean, the talk thing is that's a whole different story.
I bet you their views are much less.
Well, I'm not talking about views. It's just in terms of who's over there and the quality is way better than it's been in the last few years.
No, I agree with that. But the disappointing thing that I'm saying is that it's still not really doing a whole lot popularity-wise. But I'm hoping that with the crowds back and as things go on, that Japan, because they're also, they're not selling as many tickets as they used to sell either.
The real gauge of that's going to be the G1. I mean, that's what we'll really see how far they've come and how popular it'll be when they start pulling guys from North America in from AEW into the G1, not just Wheeler, Yuta, and 2 guys from Impact who have obviously done great and everything. But if they get some real kind of mainstream names in that tournament,
Danielson,
or Danielson, like that's going to be the thing that's going to really get attention.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely agree, and I think a lot more people are going to be talking about that. But still, it's been a good tournament from what I've seen. I don't think I've seen a bad match, to be honest. I thought Watto versus TJP was kind of okay, but most matches are good matchups and entertaining so far.
Absolutely. Not a disappointing watch if you put it on, for sure.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, we are going to give our very quick and dirty double or nothing predictions, okay?
Okay.
And then the listeners can listen to them and say, did they get them right?
Should we even bother with predictions, since by the time, maybe we could just kind of say what we're expecting to happen at the end or something like that? Is MJF going to show up? Who wins the title? And what happens at the end? I'm about to find that out. Because I was thinking, I was talking with somebody about it. There's really been no build to Forbidden Door, right?
There has been a little build. There has been a little build to Forbidden Door.
Okay, what do we have then? What's the build?
Well, there was a little build because they're doing double or nothing, dude, right now.
Right. But there's been no build to Forbidden Door. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but we don't have any matches being teased or anything, right?
Yeah, you do. You had Jeff Cobb show up on Dynamite, and they attacked who did they attack? The tag team champions?
Did they attack the Lucha?
No, they attacked FTR.
Who are ROH champions.
Yes. So that could be a match, or they could do that in the next couple weeks, right?
Sure, they could, but I'm just saying there's no main angles whatsoever. There's nothing, there hasn't really been a build. That doesn't really count. I mean, I guess it's something that could be on the card, but we don't have any idea what the main event is. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but I think Double or Nothing is going to give us something.
Well, you always want to lead to the next one, right? Although, this is something I want people to understand. It's like,
it's less than a month away, though. This, Forbidden Door is it's coming pretty fast.
Well, then you have a little shorter build, but something I want a lot of fans to understand is don't expect Okada to show up on AEW and stuff like that. Like this.
Why won't the change drop at the end of tomorrow after whoever wins that title?
I mean,
he's definitely not on New Japan shows right now.
Because first of all, it's probably going to be a multi-man tag for that. So yeah, it's possible.
I know they're going to have a singles match. I know they're not going to give us everything we want right away, and I don't want them to. But you got to have Okada in a singles match.
No, you don't. You can have Okada and Rocky Romero versus some dude from the Dark Order and Hangman Page.
Oh, fans are not going to like that.
I would. You wouldn't be happy with seeing Okada in America?
I know I would be happy with that, but I want to see him in a singles match.
Yeah, but you know that there's booking issues there. So,
well, there's creative ways around that. I mean, come on.
Well, you want to see a double DQ in the main event?
No, you can have a 40-minute draw or whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's possibilities, man. But let's right now not get our hopes up because we've already seen Noah versus New Japan and how they booked. Now Tony Khan's involved, right? So hopefully they go a little more serious with the title matches and stuff like that. But
yeah, I don't think the North American audience is going to demand way more than they gave the Japanese audience with the Noah thing.
If
it's anything like the Noah thing, people here are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, they will be, but
they need to offer
Japan,
big single. They need to offer 2 big singles matches, at the top of the card that are high caliber. Otherwise, I don't think people are going to take it seriously. They want 2 dream matches, or at least one Okada versus Danielson, Punk, whatever it is, that needs to be on this card.
I'm
not saying that I wouldn't be happy with what you're talking about, but for people to take it seriously and to, sell pay-per-views and all that stuff, I know it's sold out blindly with people, but to really drum up that interest, they're going to have to put something like that at the top of the card.
If they already sold the tickets, you're making it sound even worse now, dude. Like, well, shit, they can
I'm
just put whatever they want on there.
If they want to do it again and all that stuff, they're going to have a big match there.
Let's just wait and see, man. We know how these things work.
If there is a freaking tag match as the main event, I'll be very disappointed.
I will watch it.
I mean, I'm not saying it won't be a good match and stuff. Yeah, sure, but I mean, come on, they got to be bigger than that.
Look, Justin, if I were you, I agree. I would book it that way. But I'm just saying, you look at the history of these promotion versus promotion things in the last, 10, 20 years, whatever there has been, and there's barely ever any big singles matches. Now, this is America, right?
None of those.
It's not Japan.
This is different here. Yeah. This wasn't there wasn't 20 people in the Tokyo Dome for it. They sold out instantly. They have to provide something.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, since they sold out, they don't have to provide things now. Is because they already sold the tickets.
Well, if they want to do it again, which they are, they're gonna have to.
Where'd you hear that? Did
you hear that? They're clearly gonna do it again. Yeah, why wouldn't they? It's not a one-time only thing.
I mean, I haven't heard announcements. It's one of those things. Again, like as a New Japan and AEW fan, I would love that, but. I'm
pretty sure they want to do it again.
I would love for next year if they go to Japan and do Forbidden Door 2, right?
No, I think if it works out well, it'll be like the third night of Wrestle Kingdom will be another Forbidden Door.
Well, look, my main point is, Justin, I agree with you. All the things you're listing is things I want, and that would be fucking awesome. I'm just saying, I'm not getting my hopes up because I've seen these promotion versus promotion.
No, I'm not saying to get. I'm just saying that they should do this. They should provide that.
They should.
I'm not saying expect it, but if they're going to do this right, they need to put something like that at the top of the card.
To me, all belts should be on the line.
Like, or at least you can have title versus title.
Champion.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be for any titles.
Yeah,
it could all be. They could do title versus title for sure. Whoever's the champ, the champ, main event, go.
And Okada,
and even if you do Danielson, who's kind of, he's kind of upper mid card right now. He doesn't have a title or anything. It wouldn't really hurt him to lose to Okada.
Well, and that's what I was about to say. Okada is maybe the one wrestler in the world that's not like some legend, Well, he is a legend, but a living, like, working legend. He's like the one wrestler anyone can lose to, and it still is respectable.
And it wouldn't hurt. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt for CM Punk to win the title and 3 weeks later lose to Okada.
Yeah,
in a great match. I don't think it would hurt AEW at all.
That's not really a match I want to see, but I'd much rather see.
I know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they're going to have to offer. I think that it would be in their best interest to offer something like that.
Well, as I told you last night, I would love to see Hangman retain and see Hangman versus Okada, two guys that have history. And then at the next show, you can have Punk become champion because he should be champion. But
he probably needs to be, and it's one of those things where do it now or you can't really wait any longer.
Yeah, exactly. So, and FTR versus you could do FTR versus the Forbidden. Or not the Forbidden Door, the United Empire. You could do You could do Will Ospreay versus, Sammy Guevara or any of those guys, right? You could.
I would love to see Hiromu and Darby Allin.
Ooh, I don't think I want to see that, Justin.
Somebody might die.
Oh my God, that would be
how much fun
nuts.
Would that
you
be?
could do a. That would be awesome. I would love that. Fucking Shingo versus Keith Lee or some wild stuff. There's so many great things, and I think and I hope that on Wednesday in LA, right? That will be our first taste. We'll have a run out or something. Surely Suzuki is going to be part of it since he loves America and those guys. Maybe Tanahashi will run out and beat the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, now's the time, man.
At a show you're not going to be at, sadly.
Where's Dominion? Dominion's like June 8th, huh?
Something like that.
So it's coming up too. So, yeah. Maybe we'll have someone come to Japan to... Maybe Bryan Danielson will attack Okada after defeating Jay White in Osaka.
Ooh.
So there you go.
June 12th, by the way. June 12th.
There you go.
That's a great idea. Having like a dude do a run in here and having a dude do a run in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea. So let's just keep it at that for now, okay?
Okay.
Cool. Thank you guys for listening. Wrestling and Masks. And good call, Justin, on the Double or Nothing stuff. We talked about Forbidden Door instead, because honestly, you listen to this and that's something we're looking forward to. We are going to both watch Double or Nothing tomorrow, right?
Yes, right.
And we'll have our tweets and stuff. You can find me at John Ensman. Our on Twitter, we are at Wrestling and Pod, I believe, or Wrestling and Podcast, and I should find that real
That's on Instagram.
So on Instagram, we are
at Wrestling and Pod, and I believe on Twitter it's Wrestling and Podcast.
Why don't you tell him your Instagram?
At In-Ring Art everywhere.
At In-Ring Art. He's famous.
Twitter and Instagram.
Except he's famous on Instagram. So
I got more followers, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Way more.
Did this just say Wardlow versus Johnny Gargano breaking news?
What?
Hang on. Let me see. It's fake. Okay, it's fake. It's got to be fake, right?
I guess.
No Cody, no MJF, no Million, no MJF. People are saying. Is this really? Hang on. Let me just check this Gargano thing real quick, because that's okay. It says Gargano isn't wrestling Wardlow, and people are tweeting no MJF. So we better get out of here. I'm going to listen to this breaking audio. You look up the news and we'll text each other. We will be back, and maybe next week. I don't know what's going on.
We'll see.
Maybe a few weeks. We'll see, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you guys later.